All right, we're going to go ahead and get started with this webinar. So we got a couple of housekeeping items first. I just want to make sure everything's functioning properly before we get started with today's webinar, which is the professional edition of DotNetNuke. So if you can hear me, it would be great if you could use the raise your hand feature in your control panel for GoToWebinar. It should be right up there. Looks like some of you are finding it. Excellent. The next thing I want to do is just make sure that the screen's functioning properly. So I have this nice picture of a tree. If you can see that tree clearly in the center of your screen, please once again use that raise your hand feature. All right, we're ready to go. So the last housekeeping item is I'm certain you'll have questions, and I hope you do. I hope you have plenty of them, and I'd love to have you ask as many as you can. However, we're going to be using the asking a question feature in the control panel. So at any point, if you have any questions whatsoever about what I'm talking about, or clarification on anything or a feature, anything at all, please go ahead and use that feature. Ask the question, and if we have time, we're going to go ahead and answer all the questions at the very end of the webinar. And if for some reason we do not have time to answer yours, we'll go ahead and follow up with you via email after the webinar. And generally, we'll answer your questions within 24 or 48 hours. All right, so we're going to go ahead and actually get started with this webinar. So once again, thank you for attending. We know your time is very valuable, and so the fact that you chose to spend an hour with us is very meaningful. All right, so just talk about a little bit about websites in general. So if we think back to the year 2000 of what websites were, they were very static. They're very brochure-centric. Very few websites had anything dynamic, and if they did, it cost them a lot of money, had a lot of expertise in-house, and there were some people that were really deep and dirty with code. But all in all, the mass majority of the web, it was very read-only. There wasn't much to do there. You just put some information there. Hopefully people read it, and there wasn't really much reason for anybody to stay on your site. But then we look at and see where we are today. If we think back of how those websites were back then and look at what we have today, it was almost impossible to be able to forecast things like mobile websites or social collaboration being as important to our websites as they are today. So if you were trying to put together a business plan for your website, that would have not been nowhere on the radar at all. Maybe we could tell e-commerce, but social mobile definitely were very difficult to forecast. And so, what's going to be coming in the next 10 years? How are you and your company going to have to adapt and roll out your website and adjust to your customer needs and your competitive needs in the next 10 years? And so that's where we feel that we come in. We like to think of ourselves as the people that allows you to be agile with your web. We think of things, we put them into the product, and you just use them and integrate it with your business as you need. So whether we're talking about e-commerce, social, mobile, cloud, whatever it happens to be, we do the heavy lifting for you, and you just use it. And so that's where the opportunity is for you and your organization to be able to leverage DotNetNuke. Kind of speaking to that a little bit is, all of us are under extreme pressure. It doesn't matter what organization you're in, whether it's government, education, retail, whatever the industry is, we all face these same pressures. We have a lot of growth. How do you keep up with that? The speed of that growth and the speed of changes around the web, especially with technology and keeping up with it. Your competition, what are they doing? How can I do it better? How can I do it first? Cost is obviously going to be a factor. There's all kinds of costs, whether they're hidden or they're right in front of you. What is the total cost of ownership? How much does it cost me now? How much is it going to cost me to implement? All those types of questions. And not last but not least, but the content explosion. One of the things about you and your website today is that content has traditionally been this static thing that's been on your page, but there is content everywhere today, and it's coming from all kinds of places. It's getting generated by all types of people from all over the world, and you need to have a way to be able to not only keep up with this growth, the speed, the technology, but also how do you manage all that content? How do you make sure that you're in the conversation for all that content, whether it's social content or media content or what have you. And so, once again, this is where DotNetNuke comes in. So we recognize that businesses are having a hard time, keeping up with these changes. It's very fast, it's very unpredictable. And so with DotNetNuke, we have a platform where you can be agile, you can be adaptive, you can react in a very timely and affordable way to be able to keep up with you and your competition and the demands of your customers or your website visitors. So just a few words about DotNetNuke ourselves. The project itself is 10 years old, but we are the #1 web content management system on the Microsoft stack. There is nobody else that is as large as us. In fact, I need to update the number here. We're over 1,800 commercial customers at this point. Just last year, we're very proud to be able to say that we are part of the Inc. 500 list. In fact, out of all software companies, we're number 23 overall. And in the Bay Area, you may or may not know is the Silicon Valley area. And so there's lots of really cool, big, trendy names out here, people like Yahoo and Google and Oracle and so on. And we're number 9 in all of the Bay Area, so that's pretty, that's a pretty cool thing that we can say. Anyway, so moving on to the company highlights, there are over 700,000 known production websites out there across the globe running on DotNetNuke. That's pretty significant. We have over 7 million downloads to date. And our community is large. We have over 1 million people in our community. So whether we're talking about the number of websites or number of people in our community, you can rest easy knowing that there will always be resources for you. There's always going to be somebody that's done something that you're doing, somebody that can help you, and there's an industry that is the same as yours using the product. But one of the really cool things is that we are the only content management system with a commercial marketplace, and we have over 10,000 extensions available for you to install into your website. Whether they're designs or features, you can install them, and that's completely integrated with the product. So the cool thing about that is, you're not going to be alone, but also, just like you buy your phone, you go home and you start installing things on it, and eventually you get a phone that you like. You connect to your app store, your marketplace, and you install things, and you have a phone that does things that you want it to. You have that exact same experience with DotNetNuke. You simply install your website, and then you can go browse through the store, you install the features that you want, you use them, and your website is what you want it to be. So basically, to kind of summarize all that, DotNetNuke is the hub of your most important business asset. That is not more true, or it's more true today than it ever has been. Think about things any time that you've been out on, going around or talking to people around the water cooler or what have you. You talk about a company, you talk about something you need. One of the first things you do is you either pick up your phone or your tablet, or you go back to your desk and you look it up. You do a search. And so your website will pop up. Hopefully it will. Right? But your website will pop up, so you need to have the right features, the right ways to be able to adapt and respond to people in that very moment, that instant they find you. So one of the things about DotNetNuke is, it's great that we love our customers, and you can see that there's a lot of really cool people here. But the thing I really like to highlight here is there is not any specific vertical that you can call out here for DotNetNuke. There's higher education, there's regular education, there's government, there's financial, there's hospitality, there's restaurants, there's sports, there's military, there's retail. DotNetNuke does not, it's not pinned to any specific vertical. You can use it for just about any website use case that you can think of. It's very, very versatile. So this speaks a lot to the versatility, the agility that it allows you to have. And also, it doesn't matter what size your organization is. You could be a very small company, 5 employees, and leverage DotNetNuke. Or you can be somebody as large as Time Warner Cable, who has over 47,000 people in their company, and they're using DotNetNuke in their organization. So talking about some of the solutions, so you're coming here, you have a business need, you need to roll out a website, a world-class website, and so DotNetNuke offers 2 solutions for you right out of the box that's really going to give you that solution that you need. So the first thing is your end users, the people that are managing your website, they can create content with either little or no training at all. That is so true. I've even rolled out websites where, at the time she was 12 years old, I had a 12-year-old daughter, she managed an entire website and an entire community. I didn't give her any training, I just installed it and said, here you go. You can be just like that. You can have your end users, your company, your organization, your people in charge of their own content and just let them go on the things that they own. So the the next thing is developers being able to very quickly build web applications. So you have the part that people can see, that they can interact with, they can edit, but at some point you're going to need to integrate with something, or you're going to need a custom feature that's specific to your organization. That's where DotNetNuke also shines. It allows our developers to be able to, or your developers rather, to be able to build web applications very, very fast. And the reason for that is it has an open API. There is literally no application out there that can't integrate with DotNetNuke as long as that other application has an API. And so the great thing for developers is they don't have to reinvent the wheel. They simply worry about their business logic, and DotNetNuke takes care of all the nuts and bolts and the pipes and all those type of things, and they can just worry about you and your business needs. So we're going to talk about the stack real quick. So we sit on the Microsoft stack, meaning that for a production website, you are going to be using Windows Server 2003 or 2008. On this server, your web server is Internet Information Server, or you might also know this as IIS. And it is an ASP.NET application. And out of the box, DotNetNuke ships with support for version 3.5 Service Pack 1 or 4.0 if you'd like to use that as well. So DotNetNuke is a web application that sits on top of that entire stack, and it has default support for SQL Server. So that's Microsoft SQL Server. And in a production environment, that would be 2005 or 2008, and it could be any edition except for the compact edition. However, I would strongly suggest that for your production websites, you do not use Express Edition. There are some limitations that it will provide to you, or, well, provide might not be the right word there, huh? All right, so when we kind of dive into what DotNetNuke is, the two solutions that it offers to you are within the Web Content Management System and the Web Application Framework. So the Web Content Management System is what your end users and your visitors would be able to see. And so this is where you and your content editors would be editing content, providing that to people, changing things like permissions. And so the Web Content Management System is basically what is known as the user interface. This is the part that people see. And then the Web Application Framework is where your designers and your developers, this is where they basically, they create this website that you need, and they provide the features and the functionality and the branding that you need to have in order to have that world-class website that you've always wanted. So we're going to dive into the Web Content Management portion of it just briefly. So in here you can see from this chart that DotNetNuke is what's known as a multi-tenant framework. What that means to you is that you can have, on a single installation of DotNetNuke, you can host as many different websites as you like. It doesn't matter what number that is. It could be 1, it could be 1,000, it could be more. And every single one of these websites are going to have content of their own. They're going to have their own pages, their own site structure, their own users and security roles, their own domain names, and you can just add as many as you'd like. Now, on a single installation, though, all of these websites will share something that we call extensions. And all an extension is you can use the word app if you'd like, but all an extension is something that you can install into the framework to either create new functionality, enhance existing functionality, or change out existing functionality. So examples of extensions, it starts with modules. A module is just a term for anything, any type of feature that an end user can interact with on the page. So it could just be doing something as simple as supplying HTML, or it could be doing other fun things like a blog or forums, or maybe a survey, reports, anything you can think of, dashboards, anything that you can think of that is visible to somebody on a page is basically a module. Now those center areas there, skins, skin objects, and widgets, that's all about the design of DotNetNuke, and so that's what we call our designs, skins. And you can make DotNetNuke look like whatever you want and have your own branding using the skins. And then the last extension I'm going to talk about here, and this is not an exhaustive list, by the way, but the last one I'm going to talk about here is language packs. DotNetNuke is a multilingual framework as well, so you can completely localize your website. If you need to, support 5 different languages or more, you can do that. And we do ship with support for 6 languages out of the box, including English, Dutch, German, Italian, and Spanish. Almost forgot one there. And so DotNetNuke does allow you to have that experience as well. And so the final thing here that I want to talk about is that DotNetNuke does not impose any limits on you. We do not give you a box and tell you to fit in it. We tell you to define your own box. And so there are no limits on the number of websites, domain names, users, security roles, content editors, or anything. That's completely up to you. This is your environment. We just provide to you the features that allow you to define what your winning website is. Now, the last part of the web content management piece is I just want to introduce the concept of users. So we all know what a user account is, but there are 3 different classes of users in DotNetNuke, and the first type is a super user, and they're simply the most privileged user in the platform. They can do anything and everything on the website, including editing content, but that's not their primary responsibility. They're really there to install new features and tweak configuration and also create new websites. The next class of users is only able to log into their own site. So a super user can do everything. And as an example, if you had 3,000 websites on your installation, the super user would have access to all of them. However, an administrator would only have access to their own website. And then in their own website, they would be able to do things like changing security roles, managing users, creating page structure, and assigning permissions, and even editing content. They would be doing everything on their own website. But they wouldn't have any insights into, how many other sites were on the installation and who were on them. They basically are in their own sandbox. And the same thing goes for users. However, users can't do anything unless an administrator tells them they can. And so a user is basically anybody that can see the website, and they may or may not be able to log in, but what they can and can't see and what they can and can't do is completely defined by the administrators, not by DotNetNuke. Now we're going to talk about what's available for developers and designers for just a moment. So the web application framework side. Now this particular graph here, this chart, I'm going to start at the bottom with those light blue boxes. So DotNetNuke is built from the ground up on something called a provider model, meaning that there's all kinds of underlying functionality that you can just switch out underneath the covers, and it will go ahead and be reflected above the covers and without anybody having to do anything. Probably the best example of this is authentication. We ship with support for things like Active Directory, Live ID, Facebook, Twitter, and so you can authenticate using those types of authentication pieces. But if you needed to authenticate against something, maybe an existing or even custom existing application in your organization or some other application, you can do that. And the great thing is you may not even have to build it. It might already be something that's built and available in our ecosystem. The other great example of that is the HTML editor. If, for example, you wanted to change out the HTML editor, you didn't like the one that was in there for some reason, or you have one that people are used to or what have you, you can switch out the underlying HTML editor, and as soon as you do that, every single view on the website will be reflected, or will reflect that change. You won't have to go and update every single view individually. Every view on the website will go ahead and reflect that new HTML editor as you just switched it out. Now all that's wrapped by something we call an API, and so this API, just like any other API, is there to save you time and allows you to interact with the system in lots of ways. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel when you're developing or creating anything in the platform. So things like security and localization, those types of things are already there for you. You can just take advantage of them. So once again, we're saving you time as a developer. You just reuse the API bits and you can just worry about your business logic. Now, all an extension is at the surface is just one or more user controls. Basically, a user control in .NET is the simplest type of user interface component you can create. And so for every view that you want to have to expose to end users, you just create a user control. And your user controls can be in any .NET language that you want. It can be in VB, C# or some other .NET language. And they can incorporate any dependent methodologies or technologies that you want to use. So if it's pure CSS, HTML, XHTML, HTML5, CSS3, jQuery, Flash, Silverlight, whatever it is, you can incorporate those. There are, once again, no limits. Now, we also ship with support for the Telerik RAD control suite for ASP.NET. And the really cool thing about that is, as a customer, you will get an unlimited number of developer licenses to use for your DotNetNuke solutions. And so that's a savings of about $1,000 per developer that you have in your organization. Now, enough with the development stuff. We're going to move on to design. So I briefly mentioned design a few moments ago, and so we call them skins. And so the skins allow you to control your branding. So this is something, once again, you can use any methodologies that you want. So you can use HTML5 or responsive rendering, CSS, CSS3, pure div design, all those types of things. But basically, this is where you would control your branding. So the things like the color of the page, the fonts that are on there, the layout, and where the logo sits. And you would also define where people can add modules to the page. And so you would define these areas that we call content panes. Those are reflected by those dark blue boxes. And so these are simply areas in the page that your designer, once again, not .NETNuke, your designer defines for end users to be able to add content to. And so this is where somebody would drop a module onto the page. And so the designer controls that. Now, .NETNuke ships out of the box looking something like this. This is just the out-of-the-box design and the look and the feel. But once you get you and your designers involved, or you have somebody create a design for you, you can get as creative as you'd like. So, for example, you can have something very colorful and still kind of professional like this. Or you can get really creative, right? And you can get something that's really fun like this. This is something from one of our design contests in the past. But once again, out of the box, .NETNuke is a platform that allows you to be agile. So you can today be able to have a mobile presence out there that is optimized for the people that are coming to your website. So whether we're talking about tablets or handheld devices or still the desktop. And so just a couple examples of what some of our customers have done. This is Coinstar. This is what their website looks like. You can see the city and county of Denver. Actually, they just changed their website, so I need to update this. It even looks better today. You can see the University of New Orleans. They have, that's a major educational institution. They have a great story. They rolled out over 200 websites within a couple of weeks. That's a case study you can find on our website. And then one of my more favorite examples is Kingston. Look how contemporary their design is. You can get, once again, as creative as you'd like. Now I'm going to go ahead and jump into the demo now. So give me just a moment as I switch screens here. I want to make sure. All right. And so right now, you should be seeing my demo screen, and I'm just going to once again ask you to use that raise your hand feature in the control panel, and go ahead and raise your hand if you can see it, and if you can see the movement. Excellent. All right. I appreciate you being attentive. Luckily, we haven't put anybody to sleep yet. That's great. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started here, but once again, this is kind of how .NETNuke looks like out of the box. I haven't done much to this before our demonstration. Basically, all I've done is I've added some users and a couple security roles, and we're going to be able to do a few things. And so we're going to go over content editing, we're going to see workflow, and we're going to see mobile today. So as you can see, if I move throughout the site, there's not a whole lot that I can do. This is very much kind of a read-only experience. Even in the community right now, I can't do anything like comment or like or even kind of dive into people's profiles and friend them or anything. So this is very much a read-only experience on the website. In order to do anything more, I'm going to need to log in as somebody else. I'm going to first log in as our most privileged user. So this is our host user. I didn't mean to leave the page yet. So once I do log in as somebody who has editing capabilities, there's quite a few things that change for us. One of the first things is I have this nice control panel at the top of the page. That's that gray bar that's sticking with me as I scroll. That is your primary area for content editing in .NETNuke. So if I need to add new pages or add features to the page or do any type of configuration changes, that's where I go. This is an in-context content management system, so whenever I need to do anything, I simply go to my website, log in, I browse to where I need to make the change, and I save it. That's it. I don't need to know any top-secret logins or top-secret URLs. I don't need to install any software on my system, so I can do this from anywhere. And I don't need to have a back-office experience where I'm trying to imagine how this is going to impact my site. As an example, if I want to edit anything, and I'm an end user and I have the permission to edit anything, when I hover over an area that I have the permissions to edit, .NETNuke outlines that for us. So you can see it outlined by this gray box. You can see a nice Manage button appears when I do that, and then I can go ahead and edit things. Now, .NETNuke has a lot of context. So we talked about the context of knowing what you're doing and knowing the content and seeing it, but also security is one of the things. So right now I'm logged in as the most privileged user, and I can see all the features that are available to me for me to edit just this module. And every module is going to have some sort of capabilities for me to edit. Now, just briefly, I'm going to go over the control panel. So we have, some shortcut options like, in the tools. So very quickly doing things like adding files or users. The pages area. This is where I come to, add new pages or edit the current page. So I can edit things like the description or the title. The modules area, we're going to use this later. This is where I come to add a new feature to the page. So, if I was like adding a blog to a page or something, this is where I would go. And then we have the admin and host menus. I'm going to dive into these just briefly. So as a host user, I do have the menu available to me. And so you can see there's a lot of features available to the host user. And if you don't remember, the host user is the most privileged one. So this is the one that can come in here and do things like adding new websites or installing new features. This is also where you can come to manage things like the web form support. So the Professional Edition, in this particular menu, all the Professional and Enterprise Edition features are down here at the bottom. So this is where you come to do things like manage how DotNetNuke functions in a web form. You'll have the health monitoring. This allows you to not only have us let you know when your site's down, because it'll constantly ping your site and we'll shoot you a message if your site ever goes down, but also has the added benefit of keeping your site up. So it acts like an HTTP keep alive service. There's also some security features like the application integrity. This is a really cool feature. Basically, it audits your file system, and if anything looks wrong, it's going to tell you about it. And so it's a great way to get some reporting to let you know if anything's been changed in ways that it shouldn't have been. There's also a search crawler admin. I'm going to just dive into this real quick. So DotNetNuke has, the Professional Edition has an actual crawler that will crawl your website and follow all the links, and it will crawl any of the URLs you add here. So while it can go in here as your original website, if you have other web properties that you also need to be indexed and you would like your visitors to be able to search them, you can have them all indexed in from one place, and your end users can come and search from this one place, and all their search results will be in one spot. And so that makes it incredibly easy. You can have all your search results come from one spot, and so your end users don't have to go to multiple places and have a bad user experience. This will also index documents, though. So whether we're talking about Microsoft documents or things like PDFs, all of these are supported, and so all of these will be indexed and crawled just like Google or Bing or Yahoo. Now going back to the host menu, we also have a security center where you can go in there and proactively see if there's any updates or any security issues that you need to know about and get some guidance as to how to react to it. There's also a user switcher. This is a cool feature because this is a great troubleshooting tool. This particular tool allows you to be able to troubleshoot. So for example, if Greg Cook said he couldn't do something on a website and you swear you set it up the right way, you can, within a click, just impersonate Greg Cook and go see what he sees. The alternative would be you'd have to create a sample account that looks like Greg Cook. You'd have to create a test account and name it a certain way. You'd want to add all the security roles that looks like Greg Cook is part of, and then change the profile and so on. And as you can imagine, that is a very troublesome task that very often is not done right the first time. Now the center row is all about you as a customer. So these are things that you might take for granted. Getting help like software and documentation downloads, managing your license, or the online technical support. So with every customer has an unlimited number of technical support tickets that they can create, and so this is where you come to manage that. We also have site groups. Site groups is a great feature because it allows you to be able to group sites together. So let's say you have 50 websites and 5 of them are all managed by the same group of people. You can group those 5 sites together and have a single sign-on experience across the sites. So those users don't have to have a different account for all 5 of those sites. Or even, let's say, 20. That would be very, very troublesome. So if 20 out of the 50, the same people were managing them, it probably makes sense for you to use the site groups feature to go ahead and group those together and have a single sign-on experience. Now I know that we're looking at the Professional Edition today, or we're talking about it rather, but this is also where you'd come to manage your SharePoint connector feature in Enterprise Edition, and we have webinars for that. But that's a great feature to allow you to connect your SharePoint website to your .NETNuke website, so you can kind of get that best of both worlds experience. You can leverage the great document management features in SharePoint, and then the great content management features in .NETNuke, and so you can share your documents in an automated way across your organization to your website. Now, I'm going to go to the admin menu now. So remember, the admin menu is available to administrators of the site. So the administrators, when they log in, they wouldn't have the host menu. They would have the admin menu. Now in here, this is where we do things like, change the site settings, add security roles, manage users, and so on. But this is also where we'd come and do things like, managing files. And so managing files, this is the first area where you're going to see granular security. So you can see the granular security grid right here. So for any folder, we can get very specific with what people can and can't do. And this is where we can also add different types of folder providers. And we have default support for different providers, such as UNC folder provider for servers, file servers in your organization, and cloud providers such as Windows Azure or Amazon S3. Oops. So the other thing here is for Enterprise Edition, there's content staging, and so that allows you to have a staging version of your website. And then Google Analytics Pro. So the Google Analytics Pro not only allows you to very quickly and easily add Google Analytics to your website, but it allows you to have cool features like advanced segmentation. So you and your marketing team can go ahead and hone in on a specific group of people. Maybe it's a group of people from a marketing campaign or an email campaign. Maybe it's a landing page from some sort of billboard ad that you have. You can go ahead and track that group of people in a different way and get very specific with the goals and things you're trying to achieve with your analytics. Now that we've done all that, we're going to go ahead and do something a little bit more fun. So we've been going through this website. We're going to go ahead and create some contents briefly. So I'm going to stay logged in as this user just to keep it kind of easy. And I'm going to go ahead and go to our pages page, our menu, and I'm going to create a new page in our site. So I'm going to call this new page called Locations. If you haven't noticed, this website is basically using the persona of Awesome Cycles, which is a bicycle store chain. In this case, it's a fictional one. And so far, they do not have a locations page on their website. And so I'm creating one. And all I've done so far is typed in a word. And at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and click Add Page. Now, when I add the page, a lot of things are done for me as an end user. I've literally typed a word and I clicked a button and I have a brand new web page here. And because I use the default template or the default settings, it automatically adds an area for me to add content to. If I'm using the breadcrumbs are automatically updated for me. The page is in the menu system exactly where I want it. That's something I could have changed. And then also, there's a nice search engine and search engine friendly and human friendly URL here. You can see it up above. So that's a lot of very technical things that your end user did not have to know anything about, including some shared content down below it's already on this new page for us. Now, when I added this page, DotNetNuke had no idea what I wanted to title this particular module, so I'm going to go ahead and give it a new title. And so I'm going to go to this Manage button, so that allows me to edit things about this one module, and I'm going to go to its settings. And in here, I'm going to change its settings to Locations, and just to kind of match the page. And while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and show you another granular security feature. So this granular security feature is only in the Professional and Enterprise Edition of DotNetNuke. And so not only can I say that, for example, the marketing team can edit things, but maybe I wanted marketing management to have full control over this one module. And, I didn't want them, though, to be able to delete anything. I can get that granular. I can say, you know what, you can edit content here and you can change all the settings, but you're not allowed to delete this module. So I can go ahead and do those type of things using granular security. So matching that up from the module level to the file system level and even the page level, which you'll see shortly, you can get extremely specific about what you want to allow people to do and what you want to allow them to see. Now I'm going to just go ahead and save that. So literally all I've done here is I checked a couple checkboxes to allow a couple groups of people to edit content, and I've changed the title. And so I'm just going to go ahead and update. And there we go. We can see our title changed. Here it is, Locations. Very easy. And now we're going to go ahead and add some content to it. So every module allows you to be able to edit content. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And you can see here that context is still staying around. So let's say I was starting to edit this, and a phone call came in, or somebody asked me to go to their office real quick to have a chat. I can go ahead and leave the office, and then I'll still know what I'm doing when I come back. I can see the context of what's going on just right below the covers here. I can just move around and say, oh, I'm still editing the Locations page. Awesome. So you can always know the context of what you're doing. Now, whenever I'm editing content, I do have a what you see is what you get, or WYSIWYG editing environment. So that's what this is called when you see this editing environment. And this has all the features that you would take for granted, things like inserting images and videos and links and spell check and robust table support. And by the way, this is a completely customizable experience. This experience of what toolbar buttons are available and having certain types of toolbars in here and options such as the inheriting the design CSS classes. This is all customizable by you, and you can do it all through the UI. You don't have to be super technical to do this. And the other cool thing that you may or may not take for granted is that it'll automatically strip word formatting. So if you have people in an organization, we all do, who like to edit content or create content in Microsoft Word and then paste it into your website, you can do that, and it will automatically strip out all that word formatting in the background. So gone are the days when you come to your site and somebody did that and you see green text and you have no idea how to get rid of it or some weird formatting. This will take care of that for you automatically. But if you're pasting this from other environments, you see that there's other methods for stripping format as well. Now, you can go ahead and start editing content, but in the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and use another feature here called the Template Manager. So templates in DotNetNuke are simply, they simply talk about the structure of content or content itself. The designs are not called templates in DotNetNuke; those are called skins. And so, using a Template Manager, I could have a reusable snippet of HTML in this case, and where I can go ahead and select, here's locations and here's some content that has already been predefined for me. And so anybody who wants to use HTML templates, you can just upload them to your site, and there's nothing more than just a little bit of HTML. And so you can think of this for great things where maybe a designer has a very specific way that they want content to be formatted. So maybe you have some sort of data grids that you want to have a very specific HTML structure for. You can use this feature to have it have those templates available, and maybe have placeholders in certain places, and somebody can just replace the text in certain spots. So this is a great feature to be able to allow you to save time and effort in your organization. But you can see that this is very simple content, an image that's been inserted, 3 paragraphs of text, and then a few links, and you can see they're in a table format. So I'm going to go ahead and save that, and now we can see that our content's coming together. Now I'm going to add one more module to the page. And I'm going to go ahead and use the control panel and the modules menu more specifically in the control panel to do this. And the most common module that's ever used on your site, the HTML Pro module, already selected for us. That's great. And so I'm going to go ahead and give this new module a title. I'm going to call it Contact Us. And I'm going to go ahead and add this to the right side of the pane, or right side of the page. Now, before I do that, one of the things I introduced in the slideshow is that these areas where I can add content to, these are defined not by DotNetNuke. They're not even named by DotNetNuke. This is, once again, defined completely by you and your designer. You define how many areas can be added or can be used to add content to in a page and what they're called, and DotNetNuke will automatically fill this drop-down list with those areas. Now, just to kind of define what a content pane is, it's not just the area that can be, but if you are a designer or a developer or somebody that's familiar with HTML, all a content pane is in your design is either a div or a table cell or a span. And so they're very easy, very common HTML elements that we use every day. Now I went ahead and just to kind of recap, I've given it a title, I've changed where I want it to be on the page, and I'm going to go ahead and add it. And initially it's going to look like it didn't add it where we wanted it to be. So you can see here it is on the right side of the page, but I probably wanted it on the right side of this content. And so let's go ahead and see why that happened. Right now I've been looking at the site in edit mode. So you can see up here in the control panel I've been in edit mode. I have a few other modes that we can use, and right now we're going to talk about layout mode. Now in layout mode, when I choose to use that, this give me another view into the website. So I can very quickly see what the design is, or what the layout is rather, that our designer gave to us. So I can see that I have a number of content panes here that the designer gave us, and so when I added this to the right side, it didn't go to the right side of the content because this content over here is above it. So I can go ahead and just move this to the left pane, so within a click I can move things around. It's automatically done for us. So the power here is twofold. So I can see what my designer gave to me, and it also makes it very easy for me to move content around, since it removes all the content but leaves the modules. Now I'm going to go back to edit mode, and let's go ahead and add some sample content to this other module here. And so once again, to save time, I'm going to use this nifty feature here. So you can imagine if you had a repetitive task, you can save this time as well. And so I went ahead and I have some contact information here, insert an image, have a couple paragraphs, some fictional contact information, and maybe some links to our social media areas. And if you're interested in HTML, this WYSIWYG editor creates XHTML compatible HTML. So it's great for your designs, it's not going to break things, as well as it's great for search engine optimization. So XHTML out of the box. Now we have a page that's pretty much come together. This looks good. But up until this point, you may have noticed that this page is not actually visible to anybody. It keeps telling me that only administrators can see this. And the reason for that is I created a top-level page. Up here in the menu system, it's a top-level page. And as such, it didn't have any page to inherit permissions from. So it inherited my permissions, which basically is administrative level. If I had added this page underneath something like About Us, for example, it would have instead inherited the permissions from that page. Now, that's a very easy thing to change. So if I go to this Pages menu, instead of adding a new page or editing the existing page, I'm going to go ahead to the page settings to go ahead and see all of the page settings. So it's not the shortcut method. This is the method where I come to edit any of the metadata for the page. I can change where it is in the menu system here, and that's just one of many ways to do it. But more importantly, once again, granular security. And so now I can come in here and say, you know what, all users, this is a built-in security role. This means anybody who comes to the site, regardless of whether they're logged in or not, all users are able to view this page now. And then if I wanted to give somebody else, like marketing management, more permissions, I could do that as well. But I'm going to go ahead and save these settings and update the page. So you see those blue boxes are gone, and now I have a website that's pretty much come together. So that's creating content. Hopefully I've just illustrated how easy it is for an end user to create content. I put together a page literally in minutes. I could have done this in just a couple minutes had I not been describing it. Now, the last thing I'm going to do here before I log in as a different user is I'm going to enable workflow. So we have content workflow and approval as well as content versioning. And to do that, I'm going to go ahead and enable workflow for just this module over here on the left. And so to do that, I'm going to go to the settings for this module. And so when I go to the settings for that module, it does not edit settings for other modules anywhere else on the site or even the page that I'm on. But at the end here, I do have a tab here that exposes settings that are specific to the HTML Pro module. So, in other modules, like a blog module, for example, I might have a different set of additional settings over here that are specific to blog capabilities. But in this case, we're talking about HTML Pro, and so the first feature I'm going to talk about is the history maximum. By default, that number value, or the value for the history, is 5. This basically is the number of versions of content that you will save in history. This is a site-level setting. So throughout the site, I'm saving currently out of the box 5 versions of content in history. But you can change that to any number that you want, including unlimited. Once again, there are no limits in DotNetNuke. The other thing here is workflow. So there are a couple built-in workflows, but we're going to create our own because basically in your environment, that's probably what you're going to do as well. And so I'm going to go ahead and click Manage Workflows to do that. And once I'm here, I can edit an existing one or create a new one. And I am going to do that. I'm going to create a new one called Marketing Approval. And marketing, I'm going to give a description here because the marketing department must approve all content before people can see it. Simple enough. So I gave it a title, gave it a description, and I'm going to go ahead and save that. Now that I've saved it, I have an indirect publish workflow. You can see that I have a couple states here. I have a draft state, so meaning I can save my content in a draft and come back to it later if I'm not done with it. And then whenever I say it's not a draft anymore, it will be published to the world, so everybody will see it. That's not exactly a workflow that we might want on especially our public-facing websites. So I'm going to go ahead and click Add New State to add a state of review here, and I'm going to call the state of review Marketing Review with correct spelling. And in here I can now choose who do I want to be able to review content. So I've created a couple security roles once again beforehand, so those are reflected basically by these department names. And so I'm going to go ahead and say, you know what, marketing management team, you are allowed to approve content in this particular workflow, and it's more specifically this particular state within the workflow. Right below here, I can go ahead and say, do I want them to be notified via email? This is just one of 3 ways that they can be notified that they have content changes to review. I'm going to go ahead and check it, though. and go ahead and save my change. And so when I save my change, you can see that that new state of review is saved there. Now, if I wanted multiple steps of approval, I can continue to do that as many times as I'd like. You can have 3 states of review, or you can have 1,000. It's up to you. And then once you start to, once you have more than 2 in here, or more than 1 in here, right now we just have 1, you can start to build up a hierarchy, so you can decide which order things happen in and so on. Now that I've created my workflow, though, I'm going to go ahead and back out, and so that way I can use it. And now in our drop-down list, we have our marketing approval workflow available to us, and you can see that everything that we just typed is right here, just like we saw it. Now just below here, we're going to leave all this at the default, but this allows you to either override the workflows throughout the site, or allow this workflow to be overridden, or allows you to choose how you want this workflow applied to your site. So right now we're going to leave everything at the default, which means that this workflow will be applied to this module and this module alone, and not to the entire page or the entire site. And I'm going to go ahead and click Update to save my changes. So we just enabled workflow. Easy. So now we're going to go ahead and use it. I'm going to go ahead and log in as a different user. We're going to log in as Ross Baker. Ross Baker, when he logs in, pretty much on the entire site, there's not much he can do until he basically gets to community, and now he can interact with things. I can say, hello, or I can insert images and documents and so on, and I can friend the people and go ahead and do messages. But more importantly, on the locations page, where I've given a little bit of permissions, I have just a little bit of the control panel. I can change a couple views, but I can edit content in this locations area. So when I hover over it, you can see that where this content begins, where it ends. So me as a business user, I have no illusions about what impact I'm going to have on this area. And then over Contact Us, when I hover over there, nothing happens. So I clearly cannot edit this area. And when I edit this other area, I know that I'm not editing both. Now when I edit content, you can see that because you saw all the permissions I've assigned to people. So the only thing Ross Baker can do on this entire site is he can log in and he can edit this one module, but he can only edit content. All of those other features are gone. And so that's what we're going to do. Ross Baker, he's been told that he needs to come in here and edit some feature or edit the content. And so you can see here that it is currently in workflow and what workflow it is, what state it is. But now we can start to edit things. So maybe he was told to highlight some keywords, so I can come in here and highlight some keywords and maybe click the bold button, or if I'm a hotkey person like I am, I can go ahead and do Control-B. So I can do all those things to make these particular areas stand out. And maybe the last one is franchise opportunities. And maybe we just open a new location. That's exciting. So I'm going to go ahead and add a new row here, and we're going to say we have our Temecula store opening, so I'm going to put in Temecula in there, highlight the word, I can insert a link, so all easy stuff. Now instead of choosing a page for this, because I haven't created one, I'm just going to go ahead and put a placeholder here for the URL and just go ahead and click and save that. But the other thing that I might want to do is maybe add an image. So I went ahead and hit enter a couple times, and so now I have a new line break, so that's easy stuff. And then I can go ahead and insert an image. So whether it's an image or a video or a document, I can insert all kinds of different types of media. So I'm going to choose Image Manager. And as Ross Baker, if I don't have the opportunity to upload, so that button's disabled to me. But if any of these folders I have the opportunity to upload, I will be able to do that. The button will be available once again. And once that's available, once I can save files to a folder, I also have an inline image editor where I can go ahead and edit an image right here, so I can resize it and crop it and stuff like that right here within my content editing experience. Now, since I don't have the opportunity to upload, I'm going to choose from my image library. So I'm going to choose maybe this image here. This is a San Francisco to Google ride, and so I'm going to choose that. And I got that nice preview that I had. But I also have the opportunity to change any of the attributes for it. So maybe I'm going to say San Francisco to Google ride picture. And then I can go ahead and save this, and I can do everything else that you would take for granted, things like lining this with the text and changing the dimensions and so on. So I'm just going to insert it. And we can see there it is. The image is inserted. And so now we can go ahead and save it, but there's also one more thing that's new here. I can lock the content, which allows me to save it as a draft and prevent people from changing it after me, so I can come back to it. But I also have the opportunity to publish changes. So that's what will basically kick this into workflow. And when I choose to publish changes, this will also lock the content, so nobody can change things while it's in the workflow approval process. And the other thing that I didn't mention here is also the version tracking. So this is where I come to see previous versions of the content, see who did what and what the comments were, and roll back and so on. Now I'm going to go ahead and save this. And every step of the workflow, no matter whether I'm approving or rejecting or I'm going ahead and submitting it into workflow, I have the opportunity to get feedback. So I'm going to say added the image and highlighted keywords as requested. Right? And so I'm going to go ahead and save that content, or save that comment rather. And an interesting thing just happened. So I saved it, but right now it looks like this content's live. That would be completely scary to me if this is my first time seeing this. However, remember, DotNetNuke is an in-context content management system. So whether I'm saving this as a draft or I'm looking at it right now, I'm looking at this as somebody who has the opportunity to edit this content. And so I can see right here, with it alongside the entire page and the content all around the page, I can see the impact I'm having. So I can see maybe I added an image that's too big, or maybe this the font doesn't line up right, or maybe I intended for these images and this one to align. So maybe I need to add more content to the right. I can do all those things right here without having multiple browser windows open or other software or anything like that. But more importantly, I can see what other people are going to see just by going and changing the way I'm looking at the site up here in the control panel. I just go to view mode, and now I can see this is the content that people are currently seeing. And if I go back, that's what I'm seeing. And I can further illustrate that by logging out. And so if I have no permissions, I'm seeing this is the most recently approved content that's been saved on the site. Now we're going to log in as Ross's supervisor. Her name is Janet Smith. So as Janet Smith, quite a few things are similar, and a few things are different. Throughout the website, Janet also can't do a whole lot of things, because once again you saw me assign all the permissions that we were going to assign, and then in here we can see that the content is waiting our approval, and there's also a message waiting for me telling me about that. So this is one of the 3 ways that I'm going to be told about content approval. And then the final thing is approving or rejecting it. So whether I approve or reject the content, I'm going to be able to get feedback, and then my work is the 3rd way I can see all of the content pending my review on the site. But I'm going to go ahead and approve it. I'm going to say looks great, and go ahead and save it. So the content is saved, it's live. If I log out, we can further see that. Now the last thing I'm going to do this somewhat quickly, because we're running a little short in time. I want to take some questions. So I'm going to create a mobile website. And so I'm logging in as a host user because that's the only user that can create new websites in DotNetNuke. So I'm going to go ahead and go in here into the host menu, and under site management, this is where I can come to create new websites. And so whether they have their own domain name or they have a subdomain, or maybe in this case I'm going to do a subdirectory approach, this is where you come to do that. So I'm going to say Awesome Cycles mobile site, and we're going to choose a template. So you can see there's all kinds of multilingual templates, including a mobile website template, and go ahead and create the new site. And so automatically for me, without having to do anything super technical, I can create a new website, and it'll be available for me in just a second. There we go. So we have a new mobile website. It's using the template. Oops, didn't mean to do that. And in this template, you can see that it's giving you a best practice example of adaptive rendering. So it's giving you all the ability for you to customize the user experience with a touch-friendly or a tablet-friendly experience. So you can see there's child navigation here, or maybe it'll show up at the bottom. You can completely customize this experience for your end users. You can also go ahead and, there we go. You can also go ahead and use the previewer tool. So if I want to look at this phone as iPhone users do, I can look at it this way. I can interact with the site. I can go ahead and go to landscape mode, and I can also add different types of devices. So if I knew iPhone 5 is coming around a corner, for example, I can add that in here, and I can preview it. So I don't have to own all these devices in my organization or bother people in the cubes next to me or the offices next to me or what have you. Now that's great. I have a mobile website, and that template basically also is only available to Professional Edition subscribers. But also, how do you get people to that website? So the last thing I'm going to do here is site redirection management. And so site redirection management allows me, as a Professional Edition customer, to come in here and say, you know what, I'm going to create a redirection. And right now we're talking about iPhones, so I'm going to create a redirection for iPhones. And I'm going to say, you know what, anybody coming to this site will be redirected to my mobile site. It's automatically selected for us. And I don't want all mobile phones. Maybe I'm just targeting iPhones. So I'm going to go and do the fun thing here of advanced settings and say, you know what, if the platform is iOS, because this is the platform name of iPhone, and if it's a mobile device, so we're talking about mobile devices and not tablets, I can go ahead and say, you know what, in a couple clicks, I just created a rule that's supporting only iPhones. And so that's how easy it is for me to create rules to redirect people from my desktop site to my mobile site. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and move back into the slideshow. So let me go ahead and finish this up here. So some of the things you weren't able to see, document library, the commerce module, and so on. So kind of highlighting the benefits. Hopefully you're able to see how easy it was to use, how fast we're able to make changes. We can ensure the quality through things like workflow, and whether we're saving time or the price points, we are low cost, and we have the most value out of any content management system out there. So you will have that high return on investment. And we have several case studies that highlight that. So we were looking at Enterprise Edition today, but talking about Professional Edition, so you can see some of the differences here. We also have Community Edition. It's a free and open source platform, but with the Professional Enterprise Edition, you do get a lot of mission critical and business critical features, such as the ones you've seen today. And then also you get the paid commercial support, and so you get unlimited technical support from DotNetNuke versus the forums. We have a couple other services as well available to you. So whether you need elite support, so you want to be able to pick up the phone and call somebody, or you need help with development or configuration, we have developer support services that's available only to our customers. And then everybody, regardless to whether you're a Professional Edition customer or not, we do have a comprehensive training program that include webinars, on-site training, custom training, and we do have a training library that has over 90 hours of training materials. And so that's just kind of an eye chart for you to see a lot of the features that are different in the editions. And then we're going to go ahead and get to some questions now. And before I answer questions, I do want to highlight right after this we do have, oh no, that's tomorrow. Sorry, never mind. So tomorrow we are having an interview with a DNN World speaker. That's at 10:15 a.m. So go ahead and look out for that on our social media channels. We'll be announcing that. But I do want to invite you to DotNetNuke World, where it's all about social this year, so you're going to see a lot of things and a lot of best practices and meet people from the community. It's a great convention. It gets better every year, and I don't just say that. It is awesome. So I look forward to seeing you all there. And so let's get to some of the questions. All right, so will this PowerPoint presentation be available to download? I'm just going to go ahead and answer that for everybody. Yes, it will. We do that as well as the recording. It'll be available to you within the next 24 or 48 hours, so you'll get a link to that in your email. Does supported databases include Microsoft SQL 2008 R2? So yes, it does absolutely support that, and it supports cluster databases, and so you're completely supported there. .NETNuke is abstracted from the database layer, so it doesn't really care. Let's see here. Is it possible to have extensionless URLs? It absolutely is possible to have extensionless URLs. So the URL structure is something that's one of the many extension points in .NETNuke, and you can absolutely have that. There's probably the easiest way to get there is there's a third-party extension out there called URL Master. I personally use that one as one of my favorites, so that's an endorsement from myself. Not DNN Corp, but that is my favorite one out there, and it allows you to very quickly and easily either change the extension you want or take them away. So you can do that pretty simply with that. Let's see here. Can I develop? Can I update my apps with Professional Edition? If you want to integrate your own applications into .NETNuke, it's very easy. All you do is create modules. So you'd have modules, basically you create modules in the same way you'd be creating standalone web pages. So for every view you typically have a web page. In this case, they would be user controls. And so you can integrate or even migrate an existing application into .NETNuke. Is there a form builder feature available out of the box? That's another great question. There is a module called the Form and List module. So that's one that's in our open source Forge. So that's at forge.dotnetnuke.com. And while it is in the Forge and it's not like shipped in the box, it is one of the modules that we support out of the box that allows you to create forms. Let's see here, just a couple more questions. We're at the end of our time here. Oh, this is a great question. So does DotNetNuke support SQL Server 2012? I did not mention that, but it does run fine on SQL 2012. It's just not officially a product yet, so we don't really talk about it at the moment. Does DotNetNuke support reporting services? So once again, it doesn't matter what the other application is. You absolutely you can absolutely integrate to pretty much anything. SQL reporting services, you absolutely can as well, especially since it's Microsoft. Anything Microsoft will be easier to integrate than most other things, just for obvious reasons. But as far as reporting services, there actually are a lot of extensions out there that expose that to you, as well as the reports module that is available to you in our open source Forge that we support. I'm going to make this our last question. So where'd it go? Oh, there it goes. Can we host intranet and internet websites on the same installation? You absolutely could do that. In most cases, most organizations do not, simply because they want them to be separate for, there's a lot of business reasons to do that, and in some cases security reasons. But can you do that? Absolutely. And you would just restrict access to the other site, either through the way that, through DNS or through firewall, through security rules. I mean, there's a lot of ways to do that. There's no reason why you can't support that. So we're 2 minutes over. I want to be sensitive to everybody's time, so there are a handful of questions that I'll go ahead and get to after the webinar, so I'll respond to you directly. But once again, I want to thank you for your time today. I know your time is very important to you as well as mine is obviously going to be important to me. So, thank you once again for coming to our webinar. I hope it was of value to you. I hope you found something useful. And if you have any feedback whatsoever, if you want to talk more about Professional Enterprise Edition, please contact us. We'd love to hear from you. And enjoy the rest of your day, evening, or afternoon.